Welcome to YSM's new webinar series, Pathways to Meaningful Income, kindly sponsored by Future Skills Canada. My name is Angela Solomos, and for those of you who don't know me, I am the Vice President of Philanthropy here at the Yonge Street Mission, and we are so grateful that you've chosen to share your time with us this afternoon. Before we dive into today's conversation, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which YSM serves. YSM believes that it is our responsibility to give thanks and respect to our Creator and to those who first occupied this land we are upon. We give thanks to the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Ojibwe and Chippewa peoples, the Métis and the Mississaugas of the Credit, the first peoples of this land. We commit to demonstrating this acknowledgement of this truth through our ongoing work to bring inclusive prosperity and full participation in society for all people in Toronto. And we commit to seeking this in all that we do here at Yonge Street Mission with thankful and respectful hearts. And we love an Aboriginal proverb, which we believe fits perfectly with the work that we do, which goes as follows. We are all visitors to this time and this place. We are just passing through. Our purpose here is to observe, to learn, to grow, to love, and then we return home. So just a moment of housekeeping before we get going. Please note that we are recording this event, and we will be sending a copy of the recording to you. And we do hope that you take the time to watch it again if you wish, or to share it with others. Feel free over the course of the webinar to send any questions you may have. We will be receiving them all, and we hope to get to them by the end of our session together. However, if we don't, or if you have to jump off before the end, know that we will follow up with an email that has all of the questions with the answers included. And so feel free to ask. If we don't get to them, you will have those questions answered. Finally, if you have any technical difficulties throughout the show, there is a help button at the bottom of your screen, and you can click that and we'll be able to offer you any assistance you may need. So I'm really excited to get today's webinar started. And to do that, I am going to introduce our host, YSM's Vice President of Programs and Partnerships, Leah Caterberg. Leah, over to you.
Thanks, Angela. We're super excited, like Angela said, to have everyone with us today. I'm very pleased to be your host as we begin our discussion on pathways to meaningful income. This and the next two webinars will really begin to open the hood and have a look at some of the gears that underlie the work of alleviating poverty. Because poverty is complicated, and to be effective, we actually need to apply some level of rigor to our work. So today we'll be focusing in on our mental health and our employment services work, and we'll look at the strong connection that there is between the two. And as a bonus, we're also going to be bringing you behind the scenes by showing how generating data is helping us to better understand the complexities of the kinds of barriers that we see people come in through our doors with, and how we can continually adjust our services to better support them. I have a couple of colleagues joining me today. We have Carrie Brown, who is one of our mental health counselors, as well as Avelina Poon, our Manager of Employment Services. Welcome, Carrie and Avelina.
Hi there, everyone.
Carrie, let's start with a question for you. I understand today we have the opportunity to meet one of the youth that you have been working with for a couple of years, so that we can start to understand the complexities that youth like this who engage in our programming face as they walk through our doors.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to meet Chase. And I've started working with Chase a couple of years ago, but his journey with YSM actually started even before he was involved with the employment program that I work with. He got a recommendation from his social worker recommending that he connect with Yonge Street Mission for mental health support. And so we're going to watch a little video that talks a little bit where Chase gets to describe what was going on in his life at that time and why he decided to reach out.
Before coming to YSM, I was stuck at home for about 2 years. I couldn't leave the house because of my depression and my severe OCD. And I was feeling really suicidal at that time. I got connected here at Yonge Street Mission by my social worker. She advised me to visit It's the vibe here at Evergreen is like a party back home in the Philippines. Everyone's just laughing, everyone's just talking to one another. When I first came here, I was connected with the mental health counselor, and then afterwards I was advised to go up to the health center. The mental health supports at Evergreen helped me by teaching me how to cope to a certain type of situations and learn about, you know, mental health. Also connected me with psychiatrists and with medications, doctors. I suffer from hypersensitivity, so any lights or people talking, loud noises, it really bothers me. So the first time I came here, Esther really tried to accommodate me with the rooms. So whenever I would eat my lunch, she would set me up in her office, and I would be able to eat and do my things in peace. But then as I got used to the place, I started to expose myself, like do exposure therapy, so I was able to interact with some of the people downstairs and eat down there, which then helped me with my work outside because I was able to gain more tolerance from getting drained. After I came here, it all changed. Like I was back as a young kid again.
Okay, Carrie, so Chase was welcomed into YSM on the recommendation from his social worker. And today we're talking about pathways to meaningful income, of course, and it sounds like there were a number of immediate supports that he needed before he was in a place to even consider employment, right? It reminds me of the RISE model that we use here at YSM, where we envision our program participants moving along a generally upwards trajectory towards wholeness. It's an acronym that we use, and we can see it here on the screen. Can you tell us a little bit about how RISE applies to Chase's path here with us?
Yeah, sure. The RISE model begins with the word respond, which is really, really important. So without getting into the specifics of any, one participant, a lot of the people who join the employment program that I support come to us with a background of traumatic events. And so that might include abuse or neglect, maybe institutional living in foster care or incarceration, even things like political persecution or natural disasters. There's been a traumatic event or conditions in their lives. And when these events occurred, there was nobody who had the capacity to respond to them. No one who was able to offer them the care or the support that they needed at that time. And so that's why it's so important when participants come in that we respond to the needs that they're expressing to us. It's a really crucial first step sometimes in their healing process, when they can come and tell us what they need and have someone who's able to listen and provide that support that they're expressing that they need. And so, as you heard in Chase's case, YSM staff was able to respond to his expressed need for mental health support, for psychiatry, also some physical health concerns through the health center, and also the drop-in staff were able to respond to his need for affection, for inclusion, right, for belonging, as well as basic needs like warm meal, maybe some clothing, stuff like that. And then after that response, Chase was invited to take it a step further, right? The I in the RISE model, he was invited to be a part of the employment program. Along the way, he was also invited to participate in some other programs too, which I think he's going to tell us about in his next little video segment. While he was in the employment program, he got a lot of support through that. So there's the S in the RISE model. He was supported through employment. And he also eventually has had opportunities to engage as well.
Okay, right. So you just mentioned a number of different services that we recognized right away when working with Chase that he could benefit from. And then over the course of his time with us, we determined some additional services that, depending on, when he was ready, we would engage him with. Um, it makes me think of the wraparound approach to care that we apply here at YSM, which recognizes the multifaceted issues that each person faces, right? What kinds of services do we typically see participants like Chase accessing here at YSM?
Yeah, our participants tend to present with a wide variety of needs. And so because of that, they need a wide array of services. Some of them are in the shelter system. They don't have housing put together yet. Some of them have had justice system involvement, still have, are still working that out. A lot of them have some gaps in their education. Maybe they weren't able to finish high school because of what was going on in their lives. They don't have the certifications that they need to get the jobs that they want. And so all of these things pose a barrier to employment, right? Like if you have no references and there's very little on your resume, it's really hard to get a job. If you don't know where you're going to sleep that night, or maybe even if you don't know where you're going to be living in a few months' time, it's really hard to commit to a job. If there's nobody cheering you on, nobody in your corner, right? It's discouraging out there trying to find and keep employment. So without those supports, it can be really hard to stay employed. So without this kind of team of support people around our participants who are helping to meet the wider needs that they have beyond just employment, it can be really difficult for them to succeed. So we try and find out where the gaps are and then plug support into those gaps. So you can see here on your screen, there's this graph that shows some of the main types of support services that are accessed by the people that we have, they're participating in Chase's program. And so this is pulled from our data system. Nearly all of the participants take part in counseling. It's a program for people with either diagnosed or self-identified mental health conditions. And so that mental health support is there for them. But right after that, you can also see the immediate needs like housing, right? Drop in, the food security, food support. Those are all in there too. Again, that's the R in the RISE model, the respond part, right? We're responding to these basic needs. You might think of it as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We've got that triangle where at the bottom are the big building blocks where we need safety and security, the basic needs of survival. Until you've really addressed those needs and kind of plugged those gaps, you really can't move up into those higher level needs that people have, the needs for employment that's going to be fulfilling for them. So the I in RISE, the invite, kind of comes in where you see care management there represented, where care managers are listening to participants. They're helping them identify what their goals are and then setting an agenda and steps to meet those goals. You see HOPE represented there. HOPE is a program for offenders who are on probation, helping them to work through the needs that they have. And so those are the different programs that are all kind of represented on that graph, helping people meet all of those wide variety of needs that they have. We can also show this other graph here that shows kind of the number of hours of support that we're kind of pouring into people. So the average participant is spending a lot of time, you see there, on career exploration, on mental health counseling, coaching, and it looks like a lot, right? It looks like a lot of investment in somebody, but we really see better employment outcomes ultimately for people who are really willing to put in the time and engage fully in a wide range of services. And so that includes counseling and the other things that you see there on your screen.
The employment program was really cool. They're really compassionate, and they would help me if I needed something. They're always there for me. Esther and but Carrie is like my family here in YSM. But everyone is just so lovely because all the staff really care about the youth and the people. My care manager at YSM helped me by raising my confidence and, just caring for me, reminding me if I've eaten or if I've taken my medications. She's kind of like my big sister and then second care manager. It's really helpful that my care managers are checking up on me every other couple of days, just to check what I'm doing or how am I doing. I'm so grateful that they do that though, otherwise I don't think I'd be here. After going through YSM's program, my first placement was Property Service Department. And it was really great because I got to work with family. They treated me like I was a part of a family.
Turn to Evelina now. Evelina, can you tell us a little bit about the employment program that Chase was involved in here, and what is unique about it from the wraparound care perspective that Carrie told us about?
Yep, for sure I can. Thanks, Leah. So the program that Chase was in is Opportunities Fund Program, which we call OF. It's an employment training program that supports individuals with mental health challenges and learning disabilities. It is to provide for them the preparation work that they can do to gain employment and then also stay within employment. The objective of the program is to provide a wraparound support that involves training opportunities as well as individual learning experiences for each participant. And this is to build their essential skills so that they can enhance their motivation, resilience, and self-confidence on their pathway to employment. Our wraparound care consists of a group of dedicated subject matter experts in mental health, employment, and care management to form a huge safety net for participants to lean on whenever issues arise. We also work collaboratively with other departments like the drop-in food programming, the nursery, the health care center, as well as the housing department, so that they can have those necessary supports in order to reach stability in their lives. We can see here in the bar graph here, we have some aggregate data that shows basic demographic information on the people who enter our program. As you can see in the graphs, there is a high representation of Black community members, a high prevalence of those with disabilities, and most graduated high school, but a good number haven't. Data like this drives a deeper understanding of who we serve in the community and to ensure that we tailor our program accordingly to their needs.
No, that's great, Evelina. Let's dig into the data a little more deeply, like we promised here. How does YSM use data to know if the people that we work with are making progress and what that progress looks like?
Yeah, at YSM, we have actually become very convinced about the power of data in helping to transform people's lives. We have created a measurement framework that we call TIMES. It stands for Transformation, Integrated, Measurement, and Evaluation System. As you know, we sometimes actually get raised eyebrows when we tell people about it because they're surprised to see a social service organization get nerdy with data like us. But for us, it's actually very critical because we're learning a lot about our approaches and the type of services that we create, as well as a combination of them to help move people towards meaningful income, as well as health and wellness. And in the next slide, you can see that there are actually 18 indicators that we can track, and each along a 5-point scale. Here we can see a sample of them. They range actually from connection-focused indicators to education, finances, wellness, and so on. Tracking these things allow us to see the different ways our program participants are making progress. And if we zoom in on the employment status indicator here, for an example, you can see how we aim to move people along from no employment gradually towards more sustainable and decent work. For our mental health indicator, we can see how we track from instability towards dealing with important issues so that they can move towards stability with their mental health and then better managing their condition that they have with their mental health. So tracking these progression is very helpful because most of our participants make a series of very baby steps and they are towards their goals within these steps. And that's progress, right? And we want to see these progress, but we also want to make our participants see them.
Great. Yeah, that's really great. Thanks for showing that, Evelina. And we have just another graph to put up here because we love data so much. Happy to be a data nerd, and I hope you are as well. This bar graph shows all 18 indicators from our times measurement framework, as Evelina mentioned. And you can see the very top bar, the dark blue one here, is the movement that participants made in our employment programs overall. People like Chase. It shows, here you can see it's very small, but if you're able to see, it's a 0.47 move. So that's out of 5. It's out of the 5-point scale, Evelina, that you just referred to. And what we can see here, in addition to that overall move, is that we break it down by the 18 indicators, and we can see that there's big movement on some of those indicators and smaller movement on some of the others. And so here at YSM, we ask questions like, why? Like, what does that mean? So Evelina and Carrie, I wonder if both of you could help us unpack that a little bit. Maybe we'll start with Evelina on the employment-focused indicators, and then we'll move to Carrie on some of the other indicators.
Great. As you can see, there are 4 bars there that are in green. These indicates the ones that are related to employment. The first one being the employment readiness scale, that refers to the necessary skills that one need to have in order to keep and also get the job. The second one being the employment status, it usually reference to those who are on social assistance like Ontario Works or ODSP. The third one speaks to the economic judgment. This is the ability that they are able to have in order to make decisions regarding their finances, how they do budgeting, how do they pay bills, etc. And then the last one would be the economic stability scale, and that usually speaks to the income or the type of income that they are having or the level of income that they are having. As you can see, all these 4 green bars are indication of positive moves. So they're moving along the scale, from a number 1 to a number 3, or from a number 3 to a number 5, and so on. And this usually help us to gain a little bit more understanding of how they progress within our programming. But then also, as you can see, the second bar, it actually shows a high percentage of those who are getting off social assistance based on the support that we provide. Now I would turn to Carrie to provide us with more information about the mental health related indicators.
Thanks, Evelina. Yeah, if we look at the mental health indicators, there's a little gray bar there that shows I think it says a 0.33% increase in mental health. And, when we look at that number, it seems a little small, right, compared to some of the other bars that go a little further. But I think the way I interpret that, based on my experience with, the number of participants I've worked with, is that really is an indication of the sheer complexity of the mental health needs that participants are presenting with. A lot of people might spend years in therapy to be able to address the impacts of trauma in their lives. And so this is what our participants are up against. This is what they're working through in order to come to a position of more stability in their lives. And so, over the course of a year when they're involved in the OF program, the fact that they're able to make forward moves at all, I think, is a testament to the resilience and strength of the people that we're working with. And so I also want to draw attention to that purple line, the sense of power that's represented there that goes up 0.56%. This is what happens when people feel heard, when people have their needs responded to. They start to recognize that perhaps they are in a little more control of their destiny than they thought they were before. They start to recognize that they have skills and strengths and resources to bring to bear on their situation. And so I look at that sense of power number there. I see a big win in that column. And I also kind of just want to draw attention to the idea that, as Leah mentioned at the beginning, how, we want to see gradual incremental, this upward trajectory for our participants. And the reality is it's just not always that way. Sometimes the journey is messier, right? We take some steps forward, we go back, life circumstances can be very turbulent for some of the people that we work with. And so there are setbacks along the way. And so when we see an overall score of, positive forward movement for the people we're working with, I'm really proud of that number. Actually, that represents a lot of significant wins for the participants that we work with. And I like to apply this expression, that we're familiar with this idea, one small step for man, but maybe one giant leap for a YSM participant. So when we see that small number there representing, it represents a lot of hard work for our participants.
For sure. And just before we leave this graph here, I just want to make it clear that when we say a 0.33, increase, it's out of 5. So it's not 0.33%, right? That'd be very, very small. It's out of 5. So 1 out of 5 would be a 20% increase, which is actually pretty significant. And this is what we're seeing from the data. That actually represents a really big move forward for most of our participants. So Carrie, before we go back to Chase one last time, I just want to loop back to the RISE model, because we've talked a lot about the respond, the R, invite, support, but we haven't touched much on engage yet, the E. What does that look like?
Yeah, Chase had the opportunity to benefit from some coordinated supports, right, while he was in the employment program. So counseling, care management, job coaching. And so he's been supported in working towards his own priorities. So not just what we think is best for him, but what he's identified as being his own goals. For example, he started attending one of our mental health groups a couple of years ago as a participant. And after attending a couple of times, he stepped into what we call a peer presence role. So kind of the voice of experience in that group, being able to share his own lived experience with new participants in that group. And so that's a way of engaging him in a step further, right, in giving back. And so recently we've also started talking to him about ways that he might be able to engage in co-facilitating some aspects of that program as well. And so we're talking that through with him. But I think we're going to listen to him share in his own words as well about ways that he wants to engage in giving back to YSM.
I'm always happy to be here and be part of YSM. Whether it's like mental health counseling or volunteering or whatever it is. I've been involved with Break Free from Trauma, which is a program that one of my mental health counselors started. And it actually helped me open my eyes to what was happening in my life and gave me some insights into how I could prevent certain situations from happening. Some people just want to talk to other people. But yeah, some people just need food and some people to talk to. I would love to volunteer at the kitchen and also for the mental health groups. I want to give back because I know when I first came here, I was starving, and they were able to give me free warm food. And it's the same thing with the mental health. I was able to talk about certain things I couldn't talk to my friends about. So I just want to help out and be the person who can also help the other people. For the future, I was thinking about finishing my high school, which I only have one course left, and then I'll probably head to Seneca to do film or cinematography, or do medicine. I'm so grateful that we have these types of organization here in Toronto that helps out youths and other people who are in need.
Well, that brings us to the end of our presentation part of our webinar today. We hope you enjoyed getting an inside look at how YSM wraps support around people as they walk through our doors, recognizing that all people are complex, and often the pathway to meaningful income can just be a long and winding road. It's not as easy as just finding someone a job. Our data is showing that people often need more time and focused service provision than we think. Things like, mental health counseling to move them towards wholeness before they can even start thinking about employment. I'd like to thank our panelists today, Carrie and Avelina. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been very informative to have you here. And of course, a huge thank you to Chase for being willing to share his story with us. And of course, thank you, our viewers, once again for joining us for this first webinar in this three-part series. And you can see some information on the screen now about the next webinar, which will have more of an employer's focus, which we're very much looking forward to sharing with you, and we'll hope you'll join us for that. We do have some time for questions. And so, and I know a few have come in and continue to type away in the Q&A section there. As Angela said earlier, if we don't have time to get to all of the questions today, we're certainly putting them together on a Q&A sheet for you, and we'll share that with everybody who signed up for the webinar today. So let's see, we have one here for, I think you would be the best one to answer this, Carrie. When you refer to mental health support for OAF participants, does that mean one-on-one counseling sessions?
Yeah, that's a great question. The short answer is yes. We do offer individual counseling for all of our participants. We actually require people in that program to do 4 sessions. And that's just so that they can kind of get the hang of it if they've never done counseling before, what's involved in counseling, what that is like, recognize that it's not scary, I'm not intimidating. You get to just kind of come in and we'll talk about things, but also we'll, create a plan, right? I'm going to get some background from you. I'm going to get to know what your priorities are. It's very client-centered, goals-driven. So clients set their own goals and tell me what it is they want to work on. And then I create a plan. And at that point, they can decide, do they want to continue with the plan and continue attending sessions, or do they want to be done for now? Either way, it's no problem. No hard feelings if they choose to end it there. I remain available to them throughout their participation in the OF program to provide support. So what does that look like then? We can do one-on-one counseling up to 10 or 12 sessions, or maybe more, depending on the need. But also we do some group sessions. So the entire cohort of participants would attend, all kinds of different pre-employment training courses, training groups, but we do 6 mental health group sessions as a part of that. And so we talk about different topics like stress management, healthy sleep habits, because sometimes there's mental health things that impact your sleep, right? We talk about coping skills, emotional regulation, all of these kinds of things that sometimes people have not really considered as being mental health issues, or things that they might want to work on in their counseling sessions that they have available to them. So really the group sessions are a way of kind of building some self-awareness about common mental health factors that they could bring to their individual sessions. Also, I might help participants with advocacy in some areas. So making referrals, some of our people come in and they need access to psychiatry. So I can help facilitate that. There have been times I've accompanied participants to perhaps to emergency if their mental health is really struggling and they're really suffering. I've been able to go with participants to CAMH, for example, or to hospital emergency rooms, be able to help advocate for the person who may not be able to express in that moment exactly what's going on, but because we have a relationship, I can be there and express and help advocate, get the person the support that they need. Sometimes writing letters is part of that, right? That advocacy piece. As well as providing that wraparound mental health care. So because I know their job coach and I know their care manager and we're all working together, there may be times where, without breaking confidentiality or disclosing more than I should, I can say to, a job coach, why don't you check in with so-and-so about that opportunity and just make sure that's, something that they're able to accommodate right now. Or, I see a red flag there. Can you talk to so-and-so about that? Or I could go to the participant and say, maybe we should have a conversation with your job coach because I see this is coming up for you and it's a stressor for you. Why don't we talk to your job coach about that and come up with a plan for how you're going to manage that? So being able to provide that kind of insight to the other staff, to my colleagues, and then bring back to participants the feedback, and so be able to kind of provide that bridge for them can be a helpful part of the mental health support too. So it is a little more nuanced than just beyond one-on-one sessions. There's also group sessions, there's advocacy, and there's the wraparound input as well that I'm able to provide.
And relationship is a key word that you mentioned there, and it really strikes a chord with the video that, in one of the videos where Chase said that I think it was his care manager felt more like a big sister, right? And that she would just follow up with him on appointments and just, it's more than just one-off counseling sessions and even the programs themselves. There's that relationship there and the trust that's built. So yeah, thanks for explaining that to us, Carrie. Eveline, I think we have a question here for you. You talked about employment readiness. What does employment readiness support look like for participants?
Sure, thanks, Leah. So oftentimes when someone comes to us for employment support, we usually first conduct an intake interview with them. So that is a process that we go through with them to assess what their needs are, what their barriers are, what their personal as well as professional circumstances are, and then determine what is the best approach and the best program that are suitable for their needs. Usually, we also have our employment team who can support them through one-on-one coaching and also group-based programming. So it's also dependent on their needs as well as the availability at the time. Our focus overall is to focus on educating them about the labor market, about what are the in-demand jobs, as well as making realistic expectations around the labor market, as well as some of the steps that they might immediately be able to take towards finding employment. We go through a series of career exploration activities so they can learn about what's out there for them within reach, but then also some of the expectations from potential employers and workplaces. We also help to set up a goal plan for them so they can make realistic small steps towards that goal plan so that we can, as an employment team, encourage them along the journey. We also, on the side, would develop partnerships with employers who understand who we are as an organization, who also very much supportive of our mandate having to support those who are on the margins, those who might be less fortunate in the society, but be able to have that understanding of hearts and making themselves available to provide job placements for these individuals. Oftentimes, job placement can also mean that employers work together with their staff team to ensure that when we onboard someone to do a placement with them, that they will have someone who can buddy with them as more of an on-the-job coach, who has the expertise about the organization, but then also has the expertise about the positions that they're holding. So that is a very integrated and collaborative approach that we're taking with community partners as well as employers in order to create tangible work experience for our participants so that they can pursue a real job opportunity in the future. So that's just a summary of the different steps that oftentimes a participant will go through in their journey with us.
Thanks for that, Evelina, very helpful. Maybe we'll go to, we have a question here that says, does YSM ever invite volunteers with business experience to help community members with resume and cover letter building? If so, I'd like to help. I can answer that question. The answer is yes. We're always looking for ways to engage, volunteers and our broader community into our programming. And while some of the employment programs that we offer are, they tend to be government funded, and some of them are a little bit rigid. We have a kind of an arm of YSM called community development, where it's much more organic, and we do many of the same things, but we try to engage the community to support the community. And that's where we could definitely bring in any volunteers with this kind of background. So please reach out. You can either call the YSM main number that you can find online, or there's an email address there that you can send, and we'll make sure that gets forwarded to the right people to bring you in. So thank you so much. A question here that talks about times, and I wonder if let me pose it and see if either of you would be interested in taking it. Please comment on the average time for people to move from baseline mentioned on the times indicators of change towards their goal of stability. And I know it varies by program, but just thinking about this particular program, maybe Carrie, we can start with you first. What is the average length of time that you see in a program like Chase's program?
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. And the first answer that jumps to my mind is anywhere from 6 months to 6 years. In terms of an average, it's really hard to say because it really depends a lot on the needs that the person is presenting with. It also depends a lot on the network of support that they have existing when they come into the program. So, for someone who comes in and has done some work in counseling already, they know they have a diagnosis of anxiety, but they've done some work in counseling already. Maybe they've got housing already kind of stabilized. They've got, maybe a little bit of family support behind them. They're able to move quite quickly through those times indicators because they've got, as we were talking before, they got some of those needs for support already put together, right? If they're coming to us with without that, it can take quite a while for them to move along those indicators. We're talking about building trust with people who have had trust really, betrayed maybe in the past by people in their lives. And so we're working to build relationship and build trust. And that can just take some time. And one of the things I love about working at YSM is that we're here for that journey with them. I have participants who go through the OF program that I'm still in touch with later on, still providing support to, when they come back in and need to have a conversation. So yeah, it can take definitely some time. And I'm not sure about an average, but I know that a range, there's certainly a range of, as I say, very short to sometimes, several years.
Yeah. Evelina, is it a little bit different for some of the employment programs though, maybe because they are, funded primarily by the government and there is kind of a start and end date? What kind of flexibility do we see there in terms of timing for participants to go through?
Yeah, similar to what Carrie has already shared, there isn't a specific time frame per se in terms of tracking someone's progress. The way I have described earlier in today's presentation on the 4 different bar, right? So the first one being the employment readiness, right? Having the necessary skills to keep and get a job. That one seems to be easier for us to measure, let's say within 2-3 months. We can see someone moving from a 1 to like a 2 or 3, just simply because they often come to our program already expected that they will learn the skills to get a job. So we do offer those opportunities for them, and then they get a job. So that's when we would put a check mark to those indicators, versus some of the other indicators might be employment status. If they are on Ontario Works or on ODSP for social assistance, it depends on how long they are able to keep the job, right? So if they are successful in their job placement with us, and the employer says, you know what, I have really learned to get to know this participant for the past 2 months in the placement, I really love them. And I don't want to spend extra money through my HR system and hire someone new. I actually want to go with your participant. I'm willing to hire them onwards now. Offer a full-time employment, etc. So that's when we can then put a check mark and say the employment status is now, they're not on Ontario Works receiving social assistance from the government, but now they're able to be on their feet and gaining their own employment, right? So that usually we're talking about a time frame of between 3 months to 6 months, depending on how successful they are with their job placement, and then whether or not the employer side are able to have those opportunities available for them.
Great. Okay. Evelina, that's actually a really nice way to end, and it is 12:45. The reason it's a perfect way to end is because you touched on the employer's perspective and how important it is for us to get people into to connect with an employer that understands where they're coming from and that is ready to work with us. And so that is the topic of the next webinar. We do have a couple more questions that came in, a few more. And like I said earlier, we're going to make sure that we put those onto a Q&A sheet for you and send that out so that everybody can see the answers. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you back next time.